Welcome to the Flight Club Podcast, a woman's guide to leaning out. We give you a behind-the-scenes look at business launch and growth through the stories of successful female entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Felina Hansen, founder and CEO of Hera Hub.
Hello and welcome. I am excited to talk about everybody's favorite topic today, taxes. We have one of our expert members. She is the owner of North County CPA, and North County is referring to San Diego County. Her name is Payal Mehta, and she has been practicing in the world of taxes for over 10 years, the field of accounting and taxation. And she has a full service firm helping small business owners with accounting, bookkeeping, tax planning, and tax preparation. And I have to pause before I welcome her to the show because myself, being an entrepreneur for 16 years and working with thousands of entrepreneurs, this is the thing that everybody always kind of buries their head in the sand about. So I'm excited to welcome you to the show today, Payal, and talk about your career path. So take us back.
Thank you, Felina, for having me today, and thank you for your time. So going back to my career path, let's start with the fact that I never really imagined I would be an entrepreneur one day. I was happy with my corporate world, and accidentally I entered into the entrepreneur world, and I'm really loving it.
That's great. That's great. Well, take us back. How did you initially, where are you from? Where did you go to school? How did you get interested in the world of accounting?
So back in my school days, I really loved numbers and economics too. So I was not sure whether, what career path should I take. And talking to my professors and talking to people around me, I got interested in accounting. And I'm a chartered accountant from India. I have done my Master's of Commerce degree in costing and taxation. So I have a background in accounting and taxation, probably since the last 15, 20 years, I have been in this field. Mm-hmm. And after completing my chartered accountancy, I decided to work it was a computer education company in India, Aptech, and I worked in their fixed assets department, and I worked in their. I used to prepare reports for the top management too.
Okay.
So and then at one of the other companies I worked, I used to manage fixed assets for more than 200 of their branches. So I have a lot of corporate experience. After I came to US, I decided to pursue my CPA. So I passed and cleared my CPA exams in 2009, and I was working as a controller. So after I had my daughter, I decided to take a break. I took a break for 3-4 years, and then, that's when I got interested really to do something on my own. And I started my company, Integrity Business Services, because I did not have my CPA license back then. I had my enrolled agent license. I started my company, Integrity Business Services. I got my license in 2017, my CPA license. And that's when I started North County CPA.
Okay, that's when you're focused more so on. Let's explain the difference between an enrolled agent and a certified public accountant. Do you mind giving us the definitions on that?
Sure. So enrolled agent would focus only on taxation, and CPA is basically, CPA is more like the accounting part too. You have to give exams related to accounting too.
Got it. So it's a much more robust
Mm-hmm.
certification than an enrolled agent, where an enrolled agent is certified to process taxes, but not maybe get into the whole accounting side of the business. Am I articulating that
Yeah,
correctly?
yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about your business. What types of clients do you typically work with, and how do you typically work?
Right now, I work with small and medium-sized businesses, and I work on their bookkeeping and accounting and taxation part. Uh, I usually help them. I really love educating them as well because most of the small business entrepreneurs have no idea how the tax uh, things work or the accounting and bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Uh, so I like to educate them as well as help them with their bookkeeping and accounting as well.
So, are you working with folks that already have their books in order, or are you sometimes coming in to help somebody who maybe has been in business a few years and hasn't quite gotten it all set up and organized?
Uh, Usually, most of my clients don't have things organized. They are either new to the business
Okay.
or they have sometimes they do have an established business, but uh, they really need help with their accounting. So I work with uh, both types of clients to
Okay.
say.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, that's great. Yeah, and as I mentioned at the top of the interview, I mean, we both see this in the small business community. People really sometimes bury their head in the sand as it relates to
Yeah.
accounting and just even filing fees and taxes, and it's so interesting to me. Everybody wants to rush and talk about marketing, but nobody wants to talk about the numbers, which is really arguably one of the most important parts of the business.
I completely agree with you, Felina. And you being an entrepreneur probably have experienced this as well. Like all of this, like businesses really have a lot to do, especially the small and medium-sized businesses have a lot to do on their own, and their focus is mostly on marketing, where they think, they'll probably be able to generate more revenue. But if they don't know their numbers, it's you don't know where you're spending your money.
Yeah,
Uh, or you won't be able to analyze your reports and say, hey, this is where my revenue is coming from and I should focus on this side of business more. So I
exactly.
think this is really, really important to focus on your tax and accounting as well, because that's where you know uh, you would know how your business is doing and
Yeah.
what you want. Yeah. So
Yeah, I see a lot of entrepreneurs running their business on cash flow accounting, meaning I have money in
yeah.
my bank account. I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I completely agree. I see that often, and I've seen people, like coming to me later and thanking me for helping them, analyzing their books and, you know, helping them with their decision making.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I always say the numbers really do set you free. When, I mean, it's like running blind down the road without really, understanding your surroundings if you don't have your books in order and you're not ready to file your taxes on time. It can be really, really stressful for entrepreneurs. So, I want to talk about some of the things that are on the horizon for business owners. We've had a lot of changes. We had some changes at the beginning of 2018, 2019, 2020. In 2020, what are maybe some of the bigger things that small business owners need to be thinking about, need to be cautious of, need to be planning for as it relates to accounting and taxes?
Uh, I think that tax planning and accounting is an ongoing thing. For 2020, I believe if you haven't started doing your bookkeeping, you should focus on your bookkeeping, and getting the books in order is the first step I ask, all the entrepreneurs. Uh, and then if you're not doing the bank reconciliation, that's another thing I would want you to focus. Uh, because
So
bank reconciliation really, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
define what that is.
So bank reconciliation is basically matching your accounting to your bank statements. And if there are any errors or if there are any unusual entries, you'll be able to find once you start, working on reconciling your reports. Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So get your books in order. What platforms do you recommend entrepreneurs work on? We all know about QuickBooks, and that is kind
Yeah.
of the de facto, but there are other ones out there, right?
Yes. So I've heard, businesses also use Wave app. I haven't used it myself, but
Yeah, Wave,
I've
I've
heard
heard of
business.
that. Yeah, I've heard
Yeah,
some folks
and
talk about that.
also, yeah. Sorry, yeah.
No, go ahead.
And Zero is another platform. I think I haven't used it myself again. So Zero is another something similar to QuickBooks.
Yeah, there's some kind of simplified cloud-based platforms out there. Xero, I think,
Mm-hmm.
is spelled with an X, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Xero. Okay, so Wave Accounting is another platform. There are a few others out there. What is your opinion? Are those platforms, if they're used correctly, almost as good as QuickBooks, or are you telling folks forget about it? You only should focus on QuickBooks?
I think it depends on the type of business you have. If you're just starting out, I even would recommend, keeping your books in Excel. That's
Okay.
completely fine,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Zero, I believe I've heard good reviews about Zero.
Okay.
But since I haven't used it myself, I don't know how it actually works.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, I'm glad you said that because Excel is, for the beginner, as long as you're keeping track of here's the money that's coming in and here's the money that's coming out, right? I mean, accounting
Yeah.
is not, I mean, it's complicated, obviously. It can be very complicated, but it doesn't have to be initially. And one other thing, of course, I'm sure you advise your clients. And the biggest mistake I see new entrepreneurs make is not keeping things separate, meaning
Yeah.
even separate credit cards. Talk about that a little bit and the importance of that.
So, as a sole proprietor, obviously you can use your personal debit and credit card for your business, but you can definitely, I would recommend uh, opening a separate account for your business that helps you really keep track of your business income and expenses. Things get lost when you're using the same personal debit or credit card.
Yeah.
So make sure, you open your own credit card for sole proprietors, and for corporations and LLCs. It's really, really important not to commingle your funds. So that's
Yes.
really important, to have a separate debit or credit card.
Yeah, and with that, just to explain for folks that don't know, LLC or corporation it gives you personal protection, meaning somebody can't come after you personally. They have to, if they're going to sue you, they have to sue the entity. And if you're commingling funds back and forth, then a case could be made that you have what they call pierced the corporate veil, and
Mm-hmm.
then they could potentially come after you personally, which is not the whole point, but one of the main points of setting up a separate entity is to, put that protection in place. One thing I even advise new entrepreneurs, even if they haven't gotten their DBA, they haven't, filed for their, fictitious business name with the county so they can go get their, bank set up, is even take a credit card that maybe you haven't used in a while. It can be under your personal name. You don't even necessarily need a new credit card, but take a credit card that you haven't used and designate that credit card only for business. And just even keeping, even though again, it's in your name, as long as it's separate and everything is clean and only things you're putting on that credit card are for business, that will make your life a lot easier, right?
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Felina.
Yeah. So people get all wrapped up like, well, I can't quite set up my bank account yet. I'm like, that's okay. Just keep it separate.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, anything else we should be thinking about for 2020, specifically here in California? Anything that's coming up that's been different than in prior years?
I don't believe for 2020 anything is coming up that's different. I mean, there are a
Okay.
lot of changes which happen, all the time.
Yeah.
And I think people should definitely go for a mid-year tax planning and discuss with their accountant if there
Okay.
are any changes in their particular case. Um, but after the tax reforms, I think tax reforms were the biggest change, and they happened last year.
Yep.
So after the tax reforms, a lot of minor changes which are happening. Um, you know.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah. Let's
yeah,
let's talk about tax planning for a second because this is a new concept for a lot of people, typically, especially as new entrepreneurs, as an employee of a company, you just kind of go and you pay whatever you pay and you don't, think a lot about it. But as an entrepreneur, there's a lot more to think about. What are maybe a couple things that when you do tax planning with your clients, you talk about or you look at?
I usually look at the retirement planning as well, along with tax planning, because the retirement planning can help with saving their on their taxes too. And we also talk about, the due dates for paying estimated tax, the due dates for filing tax returns, and we also decide on if you're a cash-based business. We also decide on timing. Uh, if you can invoice your client this year, or you can, invoice your client next year. Whether investment in depreciable property before year end makes sense.
Hmm.
And with the tax reform, there was a new deduction which was introduced for pass-through entities, qualified business income deduction. We also make sure we try to maximize the deduction based on their business. So,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, that makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah, that retirement planning piece is such a big one, right? Because depending
yeah,
on how much money you're looking to make, also if you're married, how much money does your spouse make? What are your write-offs? I mean, there's a lot of complications, especially when you're married, when you own a home, when you have multiple
yeah,
assets. And a lot of times there's a lot of money that can be saved by putting money in, a particular vehicle of a retirement account so you're not being taxed on that maybe right away. So yeah,
yeah,
it's kind of a symphony almost of working
yeah.
with, an investment advisor and your CPA and sometimes your attorney. I mean, yeah, in an ideal world, you can sit down with everybody at the same time and really look at the big picture because it's pretty complicated.
It is. It is.
Yeah. And again, as I said at the beginning of our interview, people kind of bury their head in the sand a lot of times. They don't want to think about it until it's, right on the deadline. And then that's obviously stressful for everybody. So get ahead of it. Make sure
Yeah.
to do your tax planning and think ahead so you're not scrambling at the last minute. So, what are you looking forward to most in your business, Payal?
Again, as I mentioned, I'm looking forward to educating entrepreneurs more. I plan to do more speaking events so that you know, I can educate them. I can discuss with them. It helps me in my business too. It's basically giving back. It helps me in my business, and I can work more efficiently with my clients.
Yeah, yeah, really, I'm sure hearing the challenges people are having, and
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, because there is definitely a lot to it. Yeah, you've been doing some events at Hera Hub. I know that you were involved in Startup Week San Diego last year, so hopefully we'll be able to have you back this upcoming year. There's definitely a lot to think about as it relates to, again, tax
Yeah.
planning and tax preparation. So if our listeners want to reach out, they want to get in touch with you, Payal, how do they do that?
They can go to my website, northcountycpa.net, and hit the contact button, and they'll be able to reach me.
Perfect. Awesome. I know you do guru hours at Hera Hub Sorrento Valley. So if somebody is local listening to this and they want to come in and see you there, ask you questions, check the calendar for Sorrento Valley, and your guru hours are there. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I have enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you, Felina.
Thank you for joining this week's episode of Flight Club, sponsored by Hera Hub. We look forward to sharing more success stories with you soon.